Hello and welcome back to the Feminine Rising podcast. If you're new here, my name is Amber Moreno. Welcome. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're watching this over on Spotify or YouTube, maybe you're listening over on Apple Podcasts, we are going to be talking about money over service today. And this topic has really been a hot topic here in the spiritual community, just in the communities in general. I feel like it's coming up more and more. Money is always a hot topic, no matter how you slice it or dice it, especially someone that manifests money, maybe not specifically money itself, but things that money provides. It's kind of an interesting subject. I wouldn't say it's really, for others, it could be a touchy subject. For me, it's more of just analyzing how trends and things are changing and where things are going. I think it's really interesting. So I wanted to just mention briefly before I get started on the topic, this podcast is not to shame anyone. It's not to point fingers. It's not to place judgments on anyone. You can do whatever you want, however you want. Are allowed to spend your money however you want to do it. You are allowed to bring in as much money as you want. You can do whatever you want to do with your life. There's everything about it is perfect and beautiful, including all the bad shit about it. With that being said, let's begin. Let me get a sip of cacao first. Let's open that heart channel, right? All right. So the number one thing that I have really noticed in the spiritual community as of lately has been the amount of individuals that are price jacking. So they're taking their services and they're making them to a price point to where you're literally locking out a lot of people that do need the healing. And this is an interesting topic because you can look at this two ways, right? You can look at this in the negative side of things, right? Oh, your services are only going to be available for people that can afford it. That means, higher upper middle class and up. People that are everyday people, maybe they can't afford these prices but need the healing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Or you can look at it on the positive side of things, which is when you price bump, you're showing a self-worth of yourself. Secondly, now your clientele is completely different. Maybe that's what you want. Maybe you don't want to work with Joe Schmoes anymore. Maybe you want to work with people that have more money than you because they see a different value in this. Maybe you're doing it to not price gouge, but what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, like I was saying earlier, like you're trying to create a different type of clientele. So ultimately, that to me is why certain practitioners would do that. And I totally get it. And as you gain more experience, right, it makes natural sense to raise your prices. But again, it all depends on where your heart is and who you're trying to help. Some people's hearts are for those that are stuck in corporate or those that do have a lot of money and aren't sure what to do with it. Other people's hearts are for those that and can't afford it that really do need help and they're willing to offer their services at even lower prices. It's not necessarily that they don't think that they're valued at the higher price. It's just that they know that they're empathic on a level to where they're willing to do a charitable service like doing their services, if that makes any sense, versus just shoving money at something. It just everyone's within those spectrums and there's a lot of other parts and thoughts and hearts that I haven't mentioned. But they're all within that spectrum of what we agree to be our lives, right? So, knowing this and having all of these pros and cons, the other thing is we really have to understand that everyone's self worth and their self values are totally different spectrums as well. So, even though like somebody has a ton of money, doesn't necessarily mean that they have the highest self value or self worth. Other people might see them as valuable, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they see themselves in that way. And vice versa. Maybe the person that isn't charging as much, they don't have that same value as somebody else that's has the ability to charge more. And these are all things that we work on and it's part of the healing process that we go through, which I talk a lot about right on this podcast and you probably experienced it yourself going through your own growth pains and whatnot. We're going to constantly be learning, constantly be absorbing new information and constantly evolving. Unfortunately, some people don't evolve, and sometimes these people are healers, sometimes they're practitioners. And unfortunately, that means that they're only allowed to help a certain level of individual, which is fine. We need those people, right? They're like the entryways into the higher realms of which individuals need to climb and go. And maybe not. Some people, they're happy with being where they are, and that's totally fine too. Again, there's no judgment towards any of this. You can do whatever you want. I'm just pointing out the things that I have noticed when it comes to deciding whether we want to do service more or we want to make money more. And speaking of those that want to make more money, and I don't care if you're not making not even $10,000 a month to maybe you're making seven figures a month. My challenge to you is, can you give more than you receive? And so people get confused by this question because they're like, I can't give more than I receive. It's impossible. Actually, it's not. When you're giving away, and this all comes back to a story that me and my husband were talking about quite recently about part of our marriage was at the time we we were getting ready to get married, and weddings are very, very expensive, right? If you've been married, you know how much they cost. And I remember we started with a budget of $25,000. That's like nothing, right? Barely can afford it. Somehow that budget grew and grew. But prior to that, we made a decision, and this was back when we were going to church, that we would donate, that my husband had saved for forever, not forever, but for most of his career. And so he ended up donating all of it. And I'll tell you exactly why this happened in a minute. It has to do with energetics and the fact that that money that he donated is old money. Okay, keep that in mind. So he ended up, I say we, but it was he did it because we were still technically dating or engaged or whatever, and ended up donating almost $100,000 to this church. They were trying to buy the property that they were on. I believe they secured it. But this church, when I look back, it wasn't a bad decision. It needed to be done. It was a lesson learned. So we only had a small budget, $25,000 for this wedding. I knew that I wanted the wedding that I wanted, and I was going to get the wedding that I wanted. And maybe it wasn't going to be this outlandish, lavish, luxury wedding, but it was definitely going to be one that I love and I can look back at and remember it as something that I didn't think, oh, why did I do that? It's like, oh, I love that. And I do. So it started at 25,000 and it started to grow the budget all the way up to $50,000. We cash funded it. We didn't go into debt. We didn't have to borrow any money, nothing like that. It was just the money started coming literally out of nowhere. I got $10,000 out of nowhere. My husband ended up getting, I think, around the same amount from somewhere else. So we were just finding like thousands and thousands of dollars. And somehow we're able to completely fund and, like I said, cash flow the entire wedding. And so I bring this up because at that time we ended up giving more than we were receiving it because the energy exchange was different. We were letting go of more of this old stagnant energy, which was of the past of the building, to now reaping into the future, which might be a little bit slower, might not be everything that I make, but I'm always provided for. And it has to do with this concept of money is tight. It's still right, right? It's not right. You're not broke. It's just this concept of it being tight. And it's a new way of thinking and it's a new way of which we're moving into this whole global economy. And I think it's going to be a really beautiful thing. It's going to help a lot more people than people think it is. But it's like capitalism isn't going to exist, which is fine. We're in a capitalistic world now. However, what is that doing? Where are our donations going? Where are charities going? And now, obviously, at the time, we donated to a church fund. That was a building fund. You can donate to whatever you want. Like me and my husband, we like to donate to Feeding America, which is helping children have meals because there's a lot of kids that are hungry and starving, a lot of kids that don't have homes, a lot of kids that experience SA. We like to donate to those types of things. My heart lately has been on donating more to our ecosystems locally. And I encourage you to kind of do the same. Like it can be any charity. Like I think when people hear the word charity, they automatically think like church, especially when they hear the word donations, right? But we can't think of it like that. We have to think of it as outside of that box. Church fucked it over. I'm not gonna lie. Religion fucked a lot of shit up. That was one thing they fucked up was people being willing to give money to causes that they feel good about or just to help in general. But they need to feel good about it. And this is where the individual comes in. And this is what I was talking about over on Instagram the other day, actually, where I said that basically I said tribalism is dead. And it is like tribalism doesn't exist anymore. There's people trying to cling on to it, but that's the churches. Those old programs are going to break down and they need to. We're moving into this way of individualism. As an individual, if you do not feel good by your decision, you don't do it. Do something else, but feel good about what you're doing. Obviously, don't be spiteful, don't be egotistical, but that, again, This is the knowing that you have within. This is the knowledge that we carry within. When you feel good about something, you're going to want to do more of it. So that's why I say find a charity that you like, find whatever. If you like dolphins and you want to help the dolphins, there's charities for that. And I don't even like using that word charity. I'm like, is there a better word? Like a fund? Fund even sounds terrible. We got to find a different word for that. Cacao sip a break. Anyway, I feel like I went on a sad tangent there about charity, but I'm really big about it because a lot of people need help and there's a lot of money out there. But guess what is floating around doesn't exist. Like, have you seen any of the cash? I know there's one person probably listening that yes, she has, but I'm not talking to you. Have you actually seen the cash that's in your account? Like, have you pulled it all out and like rolled around in it? No, you probably haven't. I recommend it if you haven't done it, but wash it first. But you know what I mean? Like, it's all fake numbers. It's all floating ass numbers in a screen that can change at any time, at any point. All you got to do is want that number to change, right? And so there's a lot of money floating around that can be going to different things other than Amazon, other than Facebook and all these other stupid things that we love to do in the first world. You know, there's so many things just in your community that money can go towards. You know, I love when athletes help the community that they were from or currently live in, or both, because that's the type of reciprocity. I can never say that word. You know what I'm trying to say? The boomerang effect, right? What you put out is what comes back. And obviously what you put into your communities, it's going to thrive and grow. Just throwing that out there. But anyway, moving on. At the end of the day, I think the biggest thing, my point is we get to choose what we want to do in this life. Like I said in the beginning, you can do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to donate to no one, that's fine. Maybe you want to start a trust fund for your kids. Maybe you want to build a house one day and there's a savings account you got for that. Like you can do whatever you want and you don't have to feel guilty about that because that's your mission that you were divinely given and that's what you want to do. Now, if you're doing it because somebody else is doing it, now we're talking about, a pissing contest, then that's different. Like that, no. Mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Do we have time for that? I don't think we do because we're over 35. So, no, we are done with that. But you get my drift. You're allowed to do whatever you want to do. If you want to have a pissing contest, go ahead. Who am I to tell you not to? You know what I mean? Do what makes you feel good and do more of that. And also, just because this is my opinion, and I'm just going to throw this out there too as a reminder, doesn't make it correct, doesn't make it right, doesn't make it factual. Although I do talk a lot of facts, my point being is again, do what you want, do what makes you feel good. Do what makes you feel good with your money. If saving your money makes you feel good, keep doing that. Now, if you feel scarcity, that's a different thing. And then that's a whole nother topic. But again, where's your heart in the service of doing it also? So again, like for example, we'll just use energy workers because that's something that me and my husband do as well. I don't charge for energy work. I do include it in my psychic breath work. I will do it during sound healing if I think it's necessary. It's usually not, but like I do include it in the work that I do with clients. I don't have a particular like offering for that because it's not something that I am passionate about. I'm more passionate about playing sound bowls and regulating the nervous system and using breath work to heal versus energy work. So I think that's why like the whole Reiki thing never really enticed me much. But there are people that do energy work that charge a lot of money to do that. Sometimes it's an outrageous amount. Now, granted, they're probably really good at their craft. They practice a lot. They're really tapped in. That's cool. But I would ask at that point, where's your heart in the service? Like, who are you catering to and where's your heart? Are you doing it because you need to pay the bills? And this is for anyone, by the way. You could be not charging anything and still have the same problem, just because you make more money doesn't mean you're in a different mindset, but some people usually are, but you get my drift. My point is, where's your heart? Like, are you doing it for more money or are you doing it to help the individual? And then money is something that just happens to come along with it. Where is the heart of the individual? But again, you can do whatever you want to do. So can that other person. You can do whatever you want to do. That's the beauty of this life on earth. And at the end of the day, knowing that we can do whatever we want to do, we need to respect each other for that. And speaking of, we need to respect each other for that as well. Because part of this whole crossing into the individualism is the beauty of seeing the different facets of individuals and then them unifying and working together, creating units in that way. Versus the past was a lot of individuals that were tribal, looking the same, being the same, everything's the same, they talk the same, whatever. I mean, we should all have one language that we can communicate with, but you know what I mean? Like it's very cookie cutter. I need to be like a group to belong. I call it the mean girl effect, but not all group tribals are obviously tribal group, clicky group. I don't know what you want to call them, are mean. But my point in being is that that's falling away, right? And so if we can respect that and understand that within those tribes, within those communities, there's individuals and how they think is perfectly fine. It's perfect in its own way. It's correct. Just respecting them for that. You know, obviously, unless they're like hurting themselves or others, but you get my drift. Like, there's beauty in that. That's God showing a representation through an individual, just as it does for you. Like, you are also a representation of God. And just really loving and honoring that, even if you don't agree with it. Because there's a ton of people that I know, some friends, I don't even know if I can still call them friends, but they've made their choices. Do I agree with them? No. But I respect them for it. They're still my friend for it. I'm not going to judge them just because they don't have the same mindset as me or vice versa, and that's why we're friends and remain acquaintances for those other ones. You know what I mean? Like, because there's that mutual respect and understanding that we're individuals and we get to do this life however we want. Sure, we have directions and missions. Do we have to listen to that? We don't have to. That's the other beauty of it. Like, if you have a mission that you came here to do, and you one day you're like, fuck it, I don't want to do this. Guess what? You don't have to. Like, nobody's forcing you. You're the only one in charge of you. This is why, where's your heart space? Are you going after the money or are you going after the service? Or sometimes you're chasing yourself, not even doing the service. And that's a whole other topic within itself, right? You're trying to, and this is why I was saying earlier, not in an egotistical way, but just in a how can I genuinely help the individual? But it's all our choice, right? We get to do whatever we want to do, and that's the beauty of it. So that's all I really want to say on this topic. I can get a little bit long winded about it. I'd like to know your opinions. I know here on Spotify, you can leave comments. If you're watching on YouTube, drop me a comment. Like, what is your opinion on this? Like, I want to know, like, what's your opinion on what you believe people with a lot of money should be doing? I want to know what's your opinion on the individual movement. Should we stay tribal? And then three, what are your thoughts on where the economy is going globally? Meaning, like I was saying right now we're in this very like consumeristic, capitalistic type of government. Where do you think it's going to go? I guess time will tell, but I'd like to hear your opinion. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. If you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. Please remember to rate and thumbs up this if you did like it. And maybe you didn't like it and you can tell me why you didn't like it. That's fine. We're all entitled to everything, our own opinions. You can do whatever you want to do. So thank you so much for listening. And I'll see you when I see you.